My name is Mark Sollars. I started coming to Parkwood in November of 2019, and I am a widower. I met my wife in August of 2018, and it was, very magical. I knew really from our first meeting, I said, this is the one. I remember calling my mom and I said, Mom, how does someone even buy an engagement ring? And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, I'm telling you, I met the woman of my dreams. My wife and I got married the following year in June of 2019, and again started coming to Parkwood in November of 2020. My wife, she suffered from an eating disorder on and off for 13 years. And I had friends and family out of concern and love told me beforehand, we got married, like, Mark, are you sure? This is something pretty major. I don't know if I was just naive or I knew that I didn't care what happened. I knew I still wanted to marry her. So we were going to a church over in Charlotte, and we were driving, 30 miles one way. So one morning, Sunday morning, I woke up, I said, hey, let's check out a church around close to the house. And I said, there's a Baptist church right up the street that we drive by every single day. And really, with me being an airline pilot, I wanted my wife to be able to be connected with other Christian women that, would help support her on her journey and just to be kind to her. So November, I believe it was the first week of November 2019, we first came to Parkwood. Well, my wife was bawling during the service, and I said, this is a place we want to be. Fast forward, COVID happens January, February of 2020. And my wife starts losing weight again after she was making a lot of success. She was concerned about our jobs. Are we going to lose our jobs? Doctor's offices closed down. She wasn't going to the doctor. Counseling services closed down. So my wife started losing weight again. On March the 8th, it was a Monday, we went and got our first shot. Immediately, my wife had flu-like symptoms. Within 20 minutes, she was sick. We came home. She laid in bed for 6 days with a high temperature, body chills, muscle aches. Well, that following Sunday, I went to work, and I didn't know it would be the last time I would see my wife. I never apologize for my tears because I believe they're a gift from God. He gives us all sorts of emotions, and tears are also one of them I've learned to accept. So the following Tuesday, I talked to my wife in the morning. She said she was still feeling lethargic. And I said, well, baby, I'll be home tomorrow, and I'll continue to help take care of you. I didn't know at the time it was such a dire situation, nor did I think she knew, but I called my neighbor that Tuesday afternoon because I couldn't get a hold of my wife. I said, could you go over and check over on Sarah? And he went in the house, and I was on the phone with him, and he said, Mark, Sarah's laying on the floor. I need to call 911. I was just up in Ohio. I just landed. I told my coworker, I said, I need to get back to Charlotte now. I have no clue what's going on, but I need to get home. Thankfully, again, the Lord protecting me. It was the last flight out of Toledo, Ohio. The airline grounded the flight. I was able to make it back onto the airplane, came home. I called my mom. I did not know what was going on. I didn't want to know. I called my mom and I said, Mom, please don't tell me it's true. I just knew in my gut it was not good. And she told me that, yes, Mark, Sarah has passed away. And I never can forget those words. And it was life altering. The next few days were a blur, but We had a funeral on a Friday, and these people I didn't even really know, my growth group, they were there at the funeral, and they have been by my side every step of the way, and they never shied away. They have been supportive over the holidays, over random Wednesdays, over just everyday life. They have been by my side, calling and checking in my journey, and I'm so grateful for how much grace the Lord has shown me, even going through this trial that I would have never known what to do. And it was probably 2 days after Sarah passed away. A friend gave me this book. It was called Crook in the Lot by Thomas Boston. He was a Puritan, and I remember reading it, and the line that I can never forget, it said, "These moments can either consume you or refine you, and the Lord wants you to be refined."
So Mark, we just heard your story, watched you tell about what happened. And we know, I just want to say from the outset, brother, I know it takes a lot of courage to talk about what happened, publicly. So thank you for taking the time to film the video and to share that with us. And really, this is the second time that you've done this, because a couple weeks ago, we had you in front of the growth group leaders at the leadership retreat, and you talked about what happened, and you shared with them, and the feedback we got was overwhelmingly positive. And so we decided that the church as a whole needs to hear about how God has worked in your life and what he has done in you and with your growth group. So just thank you, brother. I know it takes courage, and we don't want to overlook that fact. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And like I said before, it also helps me because as I'm talking to others, I'm actually talking to myself,
right,
and I'm processing it,
right,
still to this day.
Right, right. Great. So you mentioned in the video about your growth group. So let's kind of launch into that a little bit. Which growth group are you in, first of all?
Nathan and Haley Newland.
All right. Nathan, Haley Newland. Okay. When you guys meet?
November of 2020. Yeah.
Oh, so that's when you guys first went, right?
Yeah. We came to the church, and our goal was to come to find a growth group.
Okay, great.
So right out the gate.
Okay. So obviously we heard everything that happened. So tell us some specific ways that your group has ministered to you.
They have been, like I said before, they have been by my side, from the funeral to today. They have been by my side. And, one of the things that have been really helpful is they don't shy away from my grief. They acknowledge my grief. They ask me questions about Sarah, in a sincere way of, hey, this anniversary is coming up, or this holiday's coming up. How are you doing? Do you have any plans? We would love to have you over. And really just the entire growth group they have given me hope in a hopeless situation where it's, you start to take on an identity as a grieving person, but it doesn't have to be my identity. And they've provided normalcy to me, and also the word and their actions as well, just loving on me.
That's good. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but you said that your growth group calls you more than telemarketers do.
That's right. Yeah, I mean they have been relentless. And after Sarah died, I didn't think, when you're in that situation, growth groups are typically, a more jovial time. You're with your friends, you're with your family. And I didn't want to go because I didn't want to be the person to bring the room down. Hey, here comes the griever or whatnot. And I'll tell you what, I went in there. It was probably maybe 3 or 4 weeks after Sarah passed away. They picked it up. They met me where I was at. They didn't expect anything from me, and they truly have been by my side. Even this past week, I think I talked to Nathan and Haley twice on the phone.
Yeah.
And
man, that's awesome. That's encouraging.
Definitely helps along the journey.
Now, you had mentioned one other time to me that we kind of live in a couple's world.
Yeah.
And now that you are not in a relationship,
Single.
yeah, it has been difficult, right? But how's your growth group kind of help you overcome that or help you deal with that?
There have been no changes, even if they have couples over, they've invited me to do things as well. The invitations have continued.
That's good.
And they always ask me, hey, are you comfortable with coming? Are you, we want to invite you, but it's always, again, that's the biggest thing. They have met me where I was at.
That's great. That's awesome. So along with your growth group, there has been some other things that the Lord has used to really help you as you've gone through this really difficult time. One of those is Grief Share.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Grief Share. I think a lot of people know what it is, but a lot of people probably don't know what that is. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Grief Share is a faith-based, definitely, program that helps individuals, families who have experienced loss of a parent, a sibling, a child, a spouse, a grandchild, and it really walks you through the grieving process. And one of the co-leaders of the group, Belva, Karen, like she always says, it's not going to fix your grief, but it gives you hope.
Yeah,
and because you can see you're surrounded with other people. I think we just started maybe 10 to 15 people, or typically a class size. But everyone in there, they're on a different part of their journey, but they've all experienced grief. And so it's a 13-week program. It's held here at the church, 6 p.m. on Wednesday nights. We pair it up with Awanas because then we also can provide childcare.
Sure, that's great.
And it's right downstairs in room 117, and it runs for about an hour and 45 minutes. They always try to respect the time limit because people do have obligations, but it's always so encouraging to see people come and, they share about their grief. And really, you're there not just to, hey, what can I get out of this? But people sharing their story and where they're at in their journey is so encouraging to others, including myself. I met Belva, and she has lost, has experienced grief. Yep, her husband Rusty. And I can, sit across the room and look at her and like, wow, look at what the Lord has done in her life. That gives me encouragement.
That's great. So who is leading the one that's happening now? Who is it?
Belva and myself.
Okay, so you two are leading the class happening now. Right. So that's the spring offering of it. It's being offered again in the fall. Is that correct?
In the fall. It's typically, when I went through, it was Belva and Connie led it in the fall. Okay. And then as the spring came around, I think I reached out to Pastor Mike or whatnot.
Okay.
There were some more losses in the church and people I knew that have experienced things. And I said to Pastor Mike, I said, you need to tell Belva and Connie to let's start Grief Share again. And he's like, well, what about you? And I didn't feel qualified, but having, gone through the grief, and again, Belva has helped me. I said I would only do it if I had someone else to help. So,
someone like Belva.
Yeah, exactly. So she was able to, she's been, help mentoring me through the program.
So I just want to make a plea. Parkwood, the last couple of years have been incredibly difficult. A lot of people have experienced loss.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you have experienced loss, or if you know someone that's experienced loss, please sign up for Grief Share. It is an amazing program. We support it fully. We have wonderful leaders that are leading it. And I mean, honestly, even if your loss didn't happen the last couple of years, even if it happened years ago and you haven't properly addressed it, you haven't properly processed with the Lord what grief looks like and how to have that hope to move forward. Even if it was 10 years ago, you can still sign up, right?
Absolutely.
You can still take it. It doesn't matter when you lost.
That's right. And each class is independent from another class. So if you're not going to be there maybe the third week, and now I say all they, but now me.
Yeah,
all we encourage people to come to your first 3 classes. After that, if you decide that you don't want to come anymore, you don't have to come. But I'm telling you, after 3 classes, I know Belva says the same thing. It saved my life. Not in the physical sense, but in the relational sense. And I have learned so many things through that program and the experts that they have in the videos. And it's different parts of grief.
That's good.
And it's painful to address.
Right.
It is painful. You've experienced a loss. And the one part of the video of Grief Share says, the Bible says we walk through the valley of shadow of death. You can't go over it. You can't run through it. You can't go around it.
Right.
We must walk through it, and it's painful. But again, it also gives you hope that I'm not going to feel like this forever.
Right. That's great. Okay, so we've kind of talked about the fact that the last couple of years have been really, really tough for everyone. But really, I mean, grief and loss and suffering and tragedy and hardship and affliction, those are a regular part of our life. We live in a sinful world. We live in a world of sinful people. We live in a world of accidents and sickness. And so every one of our growth groups is going to experience grief or tragedy or loss or suffering or hardship at some point, whether they already have, they're experiencing it now, or they will experience it in the future. Everybody will. That's just a fact of life. So I think a lot of people, when someone in their group or someone that they know has experienced loss or some sort of tragedy or grief, I don't think we always know how to handle it, how to even talk to that individual. I think a lot of people well, I'm afraid of offending them. I'm afraid of saying something stupid, so I'm just not going to say anything at all. Or people do offer platitudes that aren't helpful, or people I think there's an inadequacy. We don't know how to help. I think our hearts may be in the right place, but we don't know how to help. So you have some things that can help us. So help us know, how do we talk to someone? How do we minister to someone who's experienced some tragedy?
Well, again, to reference Grief Share, one of the things a gentleman who I've done a lot of research on to understand more about his past, but like he said, our society does not teach about death and grief in our culture. We don't, and you only learn about it when it happens to you, which is the worst time to learn something new. And so for me, I think in my situation, I like when people acknowledge my wife, and I don't want it for pity. I don't want it for sympathy or anything like that. But people aren't afraid to use her name, to ask about her, and again, really to acknowledge, hey, Mark, I know your wife has passed away. I'm sorry to hear that. The other thing is confessing. I don't know what to say.
Okay, just being honest.
Right. I don't know what to say.
I want to be here for you. I don't know really what to say. Yeah. Okay.
But that's also and Pastor David Bellow also said, there's also an expectation, like on the last podcast, you have to be willing to have people walk alongside you. Right. And I think that is something that it definitely was a learning curve for me. No, I got it. I can handle this. I don't need any help, until one day, I'm bawling in my kitchen's feeling so overwhelmed. And it's like, you just feel helpless. Right. So being honest as a growth group leader or a church member to the person who's grieving, I don't know what to say. I've never experienced this. And then as a person experiencing grief, being honest, saying, I'm struggling right now and I need your help. And that takes a lot of courage on both parties. And the wonderful thing is, through Sarah passing away, I have been able to connect with so many people that I would have never had anything in common with, because they've also experienced grief. And we can also sit and talk about our loved ones. And hey, what has been helpful for you? What has not been helpful for you?
That's great.
But really making someone sad, and I use myself as an example. I already am sad. My wife has died. Right. And so people say, oh, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to make you sad. I already am sad.
Yeah, right.
I think about it I think about her all the time.
That's right.
And then also asking those questions of, questions about Sarah, questions about me, because in my mind, I constantly replay our life together, and it's best to debrief that. And if you're someone who's grieving, a tool that has been suggested, write down your story, what happened. So then when someone asks you, you can just hand it to them. Hey, read this. I can't talk about this right now. Right. It's too much.
So it sounds like really what you're describing is sincerity. Like, be sincere. Yeah. Which you've talked about is the third type of person. You've mentioned 3 types of people. Yeah. The first 2 are not very helpful. The third one is the sincere person. So let's back up and talk about those 3 kinds of people.
It again, not original to myself, but in grief, someone said to me, there's 3 people. There's the avoider. They don't want to talk about death. They're uncomfortable with it. Again, our society, I mean, turn on the television. If something's too graphic or too sad, we want to shut it off. Yeah. But you can't shut off grief when you're living in it. You can try to avoid it, but you can't shut it off. So there's the avoider, there's the fixer. If I was in your shoes, I would be doing X, Y, and Z. You need to be doing this. You must go to Grief Share. Those things aren't helpful. And you're not in my shoes. And so that's why even when I know I talk about Grief Share all the time, I could, a walking spokesperson for it. But, I've learned to say, hey, here's some information, or this is a wonderful book that has helped me. Here it is. Read it when you're ready. Right. So there's the fixer. And that's the big thing. When you're ready, I've received so many books after Sarah passed away. I haven't read maybe 10% of them, just because you're so consumed with other things else in life. Sure. And then finally, the sincere. And like I said, Nathan, Haley, and various other people in our growth group have been those sincere people. And again, once someone passes away, everyone wants to surround you. And then it's 2 or 3 months, life goes back to normal for people. Hey, I got to return back to work. But they have been by my side, as well as others, but specifically them, they have been by my side even after, life goes back to normal for everyone else.
So I'm really glad you brought it back around to growth groups. I want to give you a chance do you want to say anything to Nate and Haley, to anybody in your group, to anybody that has been there for you? Because you're right. When something happens, a lot of people want to talk, but then, their life goes back to normal, but you're still going to group every Thursday night.
Yeah.
And you're still meeting these people. You're still having fellowship and studying the Bible. So just want to give you a chance publicly if you want to say anything to anyone.
First, Nathan and Haley. I mean, it makes me cry, it's definitely brings in an emotion. Just like the gratitude I have to them. And they may think they're just being good growth group leaders, but it is so impactful. It has been and continues to be so impactful in my life
that's great.
And not just because my wife has died, but they were even that way before she passed away. And they have poured themselves into me. They're not afraid, like I said before, to talk about Sarah, to ask me where I am, and just to check in with me throughout the week. I mean, they know pretty much everything about my life because they ask those questions. And they want to know, and they're sincere. So I just want to thank them for everything that they have done and, continue to do. And, many other people in our growth group, I won't go through all the names, but just have been wonderful. And I know we're not an official growth group, but even Grief Share, Belva and Connie. I remember the first day I walked in there, Belva was standing out front of the church, and I said, am I going to cry? And she said, am I going to cry? And she was like, probably. Come on in.
Gotta love Belva.
And her and Connie have been so kind. And again, very similar to a growth group, you meet for only 13 weeks. The hardest part of the program is the end, when you don't you form those relationships. Like I've said before, the pastoral staff here, and not just those who are pastors here, but also the other staff here that has been so kind, Tammy, and people who have seen things in me that I didn't know I had. And here I am leading a Grief Share class.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Mark, we're blessed to have you here, brother. We really are.
I'm glad to be here.
And I say again, it takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing, and I applaud you. I know you don't want that. You don't want the public, but I still do, man. It takes a lot of courage, and we are grateful for you. We're grateful that you're here, and we're grateful to the Lord that He has been able to do a work in your life through a tragedy, and to draw you closer to Him, and to draw you closer to the folks in your group. And I just want to say again, as we end this podcast, that this is to everyone. Parkwood's a large place.
It is.
And it's easy to get lost. So being in a growth group is essential for that spiritual growth, for the community, and for even now what you're doing in a way is mission, because you are taking what happened to you and how the Lord has used you, and you're sharing that with others, which is the essence of mission. You receive something, then you turn around and give it, and you're outward looking.
That's right.
So just growth groups are so important. I talk to people all the time that feel disconnected or lonely, and I ask them, "Are you in a growth group?" And they go, "No." And so we work hard and we plead with them, and we don't force them, but we plead with them. We help them to see just the need. We were created for community, and I think you've seen that firsthand. How important that is in your life. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
you never know what's going to happen, and God has put you and others in situations where we bless each other.
Absolutely.
Through the Lord.
Yep.
It's the Lord's work, but He uses us to bless and love and encourage and challenge each other. So again, thank you, brother. We are praying that this is an encouragement to the congregation.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm encouraged that not only I can share my story, but again, hopefully it helps others just as others have helped me along my journey.
Amen.